Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift before you even said a word? There's a silence that follows, eyes that flicker toward you with something like awe or suspicion. People glance at you, then quickly look away as if they've seen something they weren't ready to see. You don't speak loudly. You don't command attention. And yet you disrupt. Not because you seek it, but because your presence speaks in frequencies most don't know how to name. You carry a quiet intensity, a depth that unsettles the surface-level calm. Some admire it, others project onto it. Either way, you are felt deeply. Carl Jung believed that the soul emits a kind of energy, not metaphorically, but psychologically and symbolically. A frequency shaped by your inner alignment. And when that frequency rises, when your consciousness deepens and your shadow integrates, your energy becomes refined, almost otherworldly. It begins to disturb anything not in resonance with it. This video isn't about ego, arrogance, or superiority. It's about the transformation that happens when your energy ascends, when the fragments of your psyche begin weaving themselves into something whole. You don't walk into a room the same way anymore. You enter as someone who has touched their inner fire, and others feel the heat. If you've ever felt subtly feared, misunderstood, or pushed to the outside without knowing why, this may not be rejection. It may be recognition. It may be that you're no longer hiding your soul. Let's explore the deeper reasons and the signs that your energy has risen to a level most cannot explain. Sign number 1. You mirror what others avoid. You walk into a room and something shifts, not because you speak loudly or demand attention, but because your presence holds a mirror. Without realizing it, you reflect what others have spent years trying not to see. A quiet honesty lingers in your aura, and it unsettles people. Carl Jung believed that what remains unconscious will be projected outward, onto people, onto experiences, onto scapegoats. When you've done the work to integrate your own shadow, your energy doesn't just change, it intensifies. It begins to harmonize. And in that harmony, you emit a frequency that reveals truth. The more you individuate, the more your essence emerges from behind the masks. You stop performing. You no longer adapt yourself to be palatable. There's a calmness in your presence, not passive, but anchored. And that calmness disturbs those who are still ruled by the storm. Wholeness always disturbs fragmentation. To those who are still bound by ego defenses, unhealed pain, or the pull of conformity, your presence can feel threatening, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your beingness reminds them of what they've avoided within themselves. Jung wrote, "Individuation means becoming an individual." And insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. That journey doesn't just shift your identity, it shifts your frequency. And when that happens, your energy stops blending in. It begins to vibrate with a clarity that cannot be denied. It becomes both magnetic and disruptive. Let's explore 4 signs that this is happening, and why your energy, though rare, may be deeply uncomfortable for others to encounter. Sign number 1, you mirror what others avoid. You walk into a room and something shifts, not because you speak loudly or demand attention, but because your presence holds a mirror. Without realizing it, you reflect what others have spent years trying not to see. A quiet honesty lingers in your aura, and it unsettles people. Carl Jung believed that what remains unconscious will be projected outward, onto people, onto experiences, onto scapegoats. When you've done the work to integrate your own shadow, your energy doesn't just change, it intensifies. It begins to harmonize. And in that harmony, you emit a frequency that reveals truth. The more you individuate, the more your essence emerges from behind the masks. You stop performing. You no longer adapt yourself to be palatable. There's a calmness in your presence, not passive, but anchored. And that calmness disturbs those who are still ruled by the storm. Wholeness always disturbs fragmentation. To those who are still bound by ego defenses, unhealed pain, or the pull of conformity, your presence can feel threatening, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your beingness reminds them of what they've avoided within themselves. Jung wrote, "Individuation means becoming an individual." And insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. That journey doesn't just shift your identity, it shifts your frequency. And when that happens, your energy stops blending in. It begins to vibrate with a clarity that cannot be denied. It becomes both magnetic and disruptive. Let's explore 4 signs that this is happening and why your energy, though rare, may be deeply uncomfortable for others to encounter. Sign number 2, your presence disrupts false hierarchies. You've just begun to understand that your role isn't to comfort others' illusions, but to embody truth. And now another layer reveals itself. In a world where power often wears costumes and status is confused with worth, your quiet presence begins to unsettle the performance. You walk into a space, not seeking control, not grasping for praise, simply being. And in doing so, you dismantle the invisible scaffolding many people are standing on. Carl Jung taught that the self, the truest part of us, does not conform to roles, titles, or inflated identities. It does not play the game. As you individuate, your energy pulls away from the ego's desperate need to be admired and begins to rest in something deeper, inner worth. And those who are still feeding on external validation can feel it. They don't always understand what it is, but they feel it. In rooms where others subtly compete for dominance, raise their voices to be seen, or boast to feel safe, your refusal to participate doesn't just make you mysterious, it makes you dangerous. Because your presence unmasks the theater. Without saying a word, you reveal how much of it is hollow. Your energy becomes a kind of silent rebellion. You don't climb ladders. You walk right past them. And those who need the hierarchy to feel valuable may see you as a threat. They may dismiss you, side-eye you, exclude you in subtle ways, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your power does not need applause. And that is deeply unsettling to those who rely on being seen to feel real. This is spiritual sovereignty. You are no longer performing. You are no longer trying to be impressive. You simply are. And that being carries a weight that disrupts entire systems built on insecurity. You have stopped buying into the illusion that louder means stronger, that titles mean truth, that dominance means depth. And in doing so, you challenge the very structure of power that so many depend on.
So if you've ever felt resistance from those in charge, not overt, but coldness, subtle dismissal, a shift in tone, it's not because you lack presence. It's because your presence doesn't bow. It's because your power doesn't need to prove itself. Sign number 3, you trigger without trying. You move through the room without agenda, just being yourself. But suddenly someone's tone shifts, their eyes harden, their words cut, and you wonder, what did I do? The truth is, sometimes your existence alone, your glow, your ease, your joy, feels like a challenge to those who've forgotten how to access their own. Carl Jung spoke of psychological complexes, emotionally charged bundles of memory and belief buried in the unconscious. When someone carries an unresolved complex, it lies dormant until something touches it. That something could be you. Your freedom becomes the tuning fork that activates what they've suppressed. It's not what you said, it's not what you did, it's what you embody. You laugh without holding back. They call it attention-seeking. You speak your truth. They accuse you of arrogance. You love yourself, and suddenly they question your intentions. But here's the deeper truth. It's not about you. It's about what you awaken in them. Your existence reminds them of a self they exiled, a dream they abandoned, a voice they silenced to survive. And so they project their discomfort onto you. You become the mirror they didn't ask to look into, the shadow they didn't know was still chasing them. But your soul didn't come here to dim. Your path is to live fully, even if it cracks the illusions others built for safety. Your energy is a frequency. When you rise in it, you stir up what others have buried. This isn't something to apologize for. It's something to understand. Because in a world where most people numb themselves to fit in, your aliveness is both medicine and mirror. It offers a reflection many aren't ready for. If you've noticed people reacting to you with disproportionate emotion, confusion, jealousy, hostility, pause before you assume guilt. Don't rush to fix what was never yours to carry. Their reaction is not always a reflection of your wrongness, but of their rupture. You didn't provoke them, you revealed them. And that is not cruelty. That is power. When your presence calls the unconscious forward, it's rarely comfortable, but it is real. So the next time your joy feels too loud, or your peace feels too much, remember this. It's not the light that's offensive, it's the shadows it exposes. Sign number 4, you're a paradox. Soft but strong, grounded but ethereal, still but powerful. And after your presence has disrupted false hierarchies and triggered unresolved shadows, the next disturbance your energy causes is subtle but profound. You refuse to be boxed in. Jung believed that individuation is not the pursuit of a single fixed identity, but the integration of opposites, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow. The individuated self becomes a living synthesis of inner contradictions. And so as your consciousness expands, your very being becomes hard to decode. You shift, you stretch, you transcend categories. One moment, you speak with the clarity of a sage. The next, you move with the playfulness of a child. Society, however, prefers simple scripts, roles that don't change, archetypes that stay safely one-dimensional. Labels make people feel comfortable. Predictable people make the world feel stable. But you represent flux, alchemy, evolution. You may notice people struggle to describe you. They say you're hard to read or you've changed. But what they're really saying is, you no longer fit where I placed you. And that's the point. You've moved beyond projections. And in doing so, you disturb people who unconsciously relied on those projections to anchor themselves. There's tension in their gaze, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've slipped from their grasp. The truth is, you've become liminal, living between states, between definitions, between worlds. You're no longer a character in someone else's script. You're the author of your own. This is not confusion. It's coherence on a higher level. You are becoming whole, a person who integrates many selves yet remains rooted in one soul. If you've been told you're inconsistent, too complex, or hard to define, Don't shrink. Your energy was never meant to be flat. Let others be confused. You are not a puzzle to be solved. You are a force to be felt. And perhaps that's exactly why you've been misunderstood. Not because you're unclear, but because you're multidimensional. And dimensions unsettle those who've only known flat surfaces. If these signs echo through your life, let this be your affirmation. You are not too much. You are simply saturated with life. You didn't set out to agitate, but growth disturbs the still waters. Jung reminded us that the soul's emergence rarely feels polite. It stirs, it provokes, it peels back the facade, even in others. So when people withdraw, mislabel you, or seem unsure what to do with your presence, don't contract. Don't edit yourself to fit their limitation. Instead, return to your breath, to your depth, to the silence that shaped you. Write to the part of you that once begged for belonging. Tell her they don't resist you because you're wrong. They resist because your truth arrives before their readiness. You're not here to fit. You're here to reflect.